Hello, so we come to the end of Acts 21 in our going through the Greek of this chapter. So there's a riot again. Paul is in trouble. He's been pulled out, dragged out of the Jerusalem temple. They've shut the gates. They think that he's taken a Gentile and defiled the temple. They're very upset, and they're pummeling him when the Roman soldiers come down from the fortress Antonia, and the Chiliarch, that is the commander of 1,000, along with some centurions and some soldiers, they try to extricate Paul from the crowd. So then, having drawn near, the Chiliarch having drawn near, this is Sigma Alpha, Arist, it's a participle, nominative masculine singular. The Chiliarch having drawn near, he grabbed him, lobbing you an Arist, so epilambano. Aorist middle, because that's a amenu eta, it's a middle ending. Aorist middle indicative from epilambano. He grabbed him. I assume epilambano takes its object in the genitive, and that's why L2 is genitive, this personal pronoun. And he grabbed him and he commanded. Sigma epsilon is a very common third person singular aorist active indicative ending. Normally, we've seen it a lot with sen. Remember, we've seen sen a lot. It's the same thing except without the movable nu. Same thing as sen without the movable nu. Aorist, active, indicative, third singular. You get all that from just those two letters at the end. Aorist, active, indicative, third singular. This is kaluo. It's aorist, command. And he commanded him to be bound. Aorist passive, theta eta, aorist passive, infinitive. From deo, commanded him to be bound with 2 chains. And he was asking, that is the commander was asking, this is imperfect, it's punthano, with an augment on the front. Let's see, very quickly, he says, hoping that he can find it very quickly, 22, punthanomai, so it's deponent. So it's imperfect deponent indicative. And he was asking who he would be. Optative of a me, third person singular, present active optative or present optative, who he would be, interrogative pronoun, and what is having been done or having done. What has he done? Periphrastic, form of the verb to be with the participle. This is the perfect active participle. So, and what is having done? Which is not good English, but it's fine Greek. What has he done? Verse 34. And others were shouting out something other in the crowd. So there's, hey, he did this, he did that, he did that. I don't know. What did he do? I'm here for the ice cream. Okay, so epiphoneo, this looks to be imperfect. Also, they were calling out. Imperfect active indicative third plural from epiphoneo. Others were calling out something other in the crowd. Okay, genitive absolute. Him not being able. Pronoun in the genitive and a participle in the genitive. Dunamai, amai, it's deponent. So this is a present deponent participle, genitive masculine singular. Him not being able, notice that the negative of a participle is may. And him not being able to know with certainty, the security, on account of the uproar. This is the aorist of gnosko. It's an infinitive because some of the letters are missing, right? Gnosko is the present. There's a lot missing. So it's not present, it's aorist. Aorist, active infinitive. Him not being able to know securely because of the uproar, he commanded him to be led into the barracks. So this is a sen. There's all the letters, the same as this, except with the new movable nu. This doesn't have the movable nu because the next letter is a consonant. This has the movable nu because the next word is a vowel, and it's just easier to say. Senagasta. That just flows off the tongue. Senagasta. Whereas this is kalu sedethenai. Sedethenai. Okay, that flows because it's a consonant. So he commanded him to be led. This is a present passive infinitive. This is aorist active indicative. into the barracks. Verse 35, and when it came to be upon the steps, this is a very well known, we've had it over and over again, right? It's the aorist, middle deponent, indicative, third singular from ginomai. It happened, sumbino, except there's no ino, so it's aorist. There's the augment. Aorist, active, indicative, third singular. It happened, him to be carried, bastazo, carry. It's an infinitive because the I, it's passive, to be carried. A present, though, present passive infinitive from bastazo. Him to be carried by the soldiers because of the force of the crowd. For the multitude of the people were following. This is imperfect of akalutheo. It's present stem with an augment and imperfect endings. Crying, present active infinitive, take him! It's like, well, I would take him if you'd stop messing with him. So this is an imperative, right? Iro. So it's a present active imperative, second singular from Iro. New paragraph, final paragraph of the chapter, verse 37. And about to enter into the barracks, Paul says to the commander. So this is a present participle of mellow, yellow. And then this is a present, a lot of presents are here. This is the present passive infinitive, although it's not passive, is it? I wonder if it's deponent. Let me look real carefully, real quickly. Can you do it quickly? No, it's asago. So it's middle. Let's say it's a about to himself to enter. Go with the intensive one. Present middle infinitive from asago. So being about to enter into the barracks, Paul says to the Chiliarch, historical present. He says to the commander, quote, if it is lawful for me to speak something to you, and it's a question. He's basically saying, we wouldn't put it like this. We'd say, is it permitted for me to speak to you? But if is used here. This is what he asks, right? Conditional clause in a way. He's trying to find out. This is present indicative. This is aping an aorist. This is an indefinite pronoun. This is a question mark. And he said, this is a common expression in Greek. And he said, this is the aorist of ephiemi. Quote, Greek, you know Greek? I thought you were a low-level kind of brigand who only knew Aramaic. This looks dative to me. In Greek, you know? Verse 38. Not then you aren't you? He's really confused. Aren't you the Egyptian? The having led off before these days and having led out into the desert the 4,000 men of the Sicarii. Probably Sicarii is being used somewhat loosely here. Inciting revolt is this one. The Egyptian, the one who incited a revolt before certain days and led them out into the desert, 4,000 men of the dagger men, the brigands, the bad guys, the terrorists is what my Greek one says. Well, Paul isn't. That's not Paul. He's got the wrong guy here. Verse 39. And Paul said, aping an aorist, quote, I am a man. I am a Jew. I am a Jewish man. Yada da 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 da. So I am a Jewish man of Tarsus in Cilicia. I'm not from Egypt. I'm from Tarsus. You're going the wrong direction. I'm north. And he says here, not a citizen. So he's a polites. I'm a citizen of a not mean city, of not an average city. I'm a citizen of an important city, perhaps the third largest in the empire, I would say. It's probably, the largest is Rome, second largest is probably Alexandria in Egypt, and then the third largest is Tarsus. So he's from it's not as big as Alexandria in Egypt, but it's a pretty impressive city. Maybe the number city for philosophy at the time, as we've said earlier in our trip through Acts. So, okay. And I ask you, this is present, deomai. I think that might be deponent. It is, so it's deponent, present, deponent indicative. And I ask you, turn me around, toss me. No, that's not what he asks. Epitrepon, trepson. Psi is the key to hidden sigma, so we have a son here. That's the second person singular aorist active imperative. Turn me, to speak to the people. This is aorist because of the sigma alpha. It's aorist infinitive of leo, aorist active infinitive. And for some reason they do it. I mean, this seems like a bad decision, but we get a nice speech out of it, so I'm glad they did. Verse 40. And him having turned, Paul having stood, so it's genitive absolute here, which now, of course, I don't think we have to hold Luke to perfect grammar. It's not like there is the perfect grammar from which all errors can be. I mean, I don't think you can speak of errors in grammar. Other than, there are conventions, of course. But anyway, all of that is to say is sometimes we treat grammar as if it's absolute truth. But grammar evolves with language, and so maybe this could be bad grammar, I suppose. But if this is good grammar, and let's say it is, if this is good grammar, then the him would not be Paul, because then it would be nominative to match Paul. So I'm guessing the him here is actually the chiliarch. So the chiliarch, that is the commander, having turned Paul. So this is C is a key, the hidden sigma alpha. It's aorist, and ant is active participle, aorist active participle, genitive masculine singular to match L2. So the commander having turned him, Paul having stood. This is the perfect participle of histemi, nominative masculine singular. Having stood upon the steps, he waved with his hand to the people. So there's se. We had se in the very first slide today. It also had sen with a movable nu. Now we're back to se because the next letter is a consonant. So just those two letters tell us what? Just those two letters, aorist active indicative third singular, from katasayo, something like that. Katasayo, yes. I'm always right. Not always, okay. I'm joking. And a great silence having come to be, another genitive absolute. Luke likes genitive absolutes. Have you noticed that? So here's a noun in the genitive, adjective that goes with it. Much silence having come to be. This is the aorist of ginomai. He shouted out, again, what is sen? There's se, there's sen, same thing, except this has the movable nu. Why does it have the movable nu? Because the next word begins with a tau. Again, nobody's keeping track of this. You're allowed to do it. You're allowed to do what you want to do. It's language, right? So what is sen? Aorist active indicative third singular from prosphoneo. So he shouted out in the Hebrew dialect, saying, tune in on Monday to find out what Paul says in the Hebrew dialect. I mentioned in the podcast that I think he's talking about Aramaic here. Well, chapter 21 is at an end, and so next week we will move on with, Lord willing, with Acts 22. And for my patrons video and podcast for Saturday, I believe I'm going to do a video on Paul and the temple. Look at what Paul's attitude to the Jewish temple seems to have been, from as much as we can tell from his writings. Thank you very much.